Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Our guests today are Ken Swain, he's Vice President and Area Manager of First National Bank of Scotia, and Jill Tyler, a history teacher at Scotia-Glenville High School. We're going to be talking about junior achievement and especially some of the things they do to help students learn to be financially literate. And that includes getting some real-world skills and concepts as well as basic things. So I want to really welcome you two. This is a great program you do.
Thank you, Richard.
Let's start out with what is junior achievement? Anybody can jump in here.
Okay, I'll say what it is from the school
Right.
point, how we use it in 12th grade at Scotia. We've had it at Scotia since '93 now. So they approached us, Junior Achievement approached us and said, is this something you would be interested in, bringing in individuals like Ken from the community and having them talk to students about their world post-graduation. There are a lot of opportunities with junior achievement. It's not just 12th grade, it's not just talking about finance, but they have mentoring programs. My sister, who lives in Denver, Colorado, goes into a 3rd grade classroom.
Oh, wow.
And she works in insurance for
So
Mika.
they would be, what, 3 and say like 9-year-olds?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
And she says it's a rewarding experience. It's fun. You know? And it gives somebody like Ken or my sister who don't spend time with students or children, it gives them that, different perspective on the day, too.
Nice.
So, but at Scotia, it's for 12th graders that we do it. And economics is a half-year course, half-year economics, half-year government. And while we have...
And that's what you teach, social studies, half-year, a lot of economics and government.
I teach economics for half of the year. I don't teach the government aspect, just economics, and then 11th grade social studies. And then Ken will come in once a week, generally Fridays, and he talks about... So that's what JA is from the teacher point of view.
And how do you see it?
From a volunteer point of view, it's a really, it's something that I enjoy very, very much. I love to volunteer. I love to give back to my community, and that's a big part of what First National Bank of Scotia is all about, giving back to the communities that we're involved with. And it's one way, that's where I went to high school, so that's where my roots were formed as a young person at Scotia-Glenville High School. So it's nice to be able to go back and work with young people and give them some information and give them some knowledge so that they can go out into the real world and hopefully with a little bit better understanding of finances and financial literacy and what possibly some things that they may face down the road. And I impart that with my own School of Hard Knocks and a few other stories and things along the way. But I enjoy it as a volunteer. It's very enjoyable, very rewarding.
And we're just trying to get them to see post-graduation life too. And
Yes.
I think, and with teachers, I think they think that we live at the school, that we never leave. So Ken brings in the aspect that you do move on from high school. Everybody moves on. You have careers, and he brings in that element. Okay, it's time to really start thinking about what's going to happen after high school, and it's good to hear it from somebody, not just their teacher.
So 17 years that the school has been doing that's a commitment.
It is. And we've had a couple of different people. Scott Stevens.
Yes.
He owns Dimension Fabricators. And he's over in Scotia in the Corporations Park.
In the town of Glenville.
Yes, in the town of Glenville. He's been a volunteer for a long time now. We've had GE people come through. But Ken's been, how long?
It's been 5 years for me, and it was actually Scott Stevens was the person that got me involved. Scott's on our board of directors also for the bank, and came to me and asked if I would be interested. And I did it. I started, it was more of, I offered a couple of classes because there's a specific chapter in
The
the
fit
book
with
that's devoted to
banking.
banking strictly. So he asked me to come in as a guest speaker and go over some of the banking component, and which was something that he didn't have a whole lot of familiarity with. So I came in, and really that was how I started. And then from there, you know, he had said, you know, geez, why don't you volunteer there? I know they need volunteers, and so I did, and enjoyed it. Started off volunteering with one class a semester, and then this past year I've worked with Jill and have. The fall semester I did 2 classes, and then the spring semester I'm doing 2 classes with Jill as well. So,
and this is something that's very easy to volunteer for.
How do you mean?
In the sense, some people are always looking, how can I volunteer? How can I help my community? And this is something, they don't put you through anything rigorous to, you know, because you're just bringing your experience there. So
they have a pretty good program, it sounds like, then, that you can plug yourself into.
Yes.
it's very
The lesson plan is done.
That's a great way of saying
it is.
it. You can plug yourself into it. And once you've done one round, half a year, half a class, you can then just rely on, okay, how did that go?
Yes.
And then you can tweak the presentation. And so once you've done that, you can just, it's very simple to volunteer for. It's not a simple program in terms of the effects it has, but it's very manageable.
That sounds good.
So I think that Ken would definitely.
absolutely.
Well, you've got different audiences, I guess, that we're interested in. You mentioned volunteers, so I'm assuming you could use more, or JA could use more.
Yes.
They're always looking for volunteers. Like with any volunteer program, you're always just looking for good volunteers who, you know, want to help out the kids. And the students are nice. You know, they enjoy having.
It's very, very rewarding.
And
I think this year at Scotia, I believe there were 2 classes that did not have benefit of a volunteer to come in. I believe it was 2 classes.
And so how do you determine which class gets it? Or how do students find out about it, or all that kind of thing?
Well, every student has to take economics. So, and we hope to have a junior achievement representative in every class.
So everybody's going to go through this?
Everybody's going to go through economics. And hopefully everybody has a junior achievement representative, whether it's from First National, Trusco Bank, you know, GE, any of the, maybe even Hannaford, who knows, like where people that could come in from the community to talk to the kids. And
so any school that's got a financial literacy interest.
Well, this is part of the New York State curriculum. It's economics, so every school has to have.
Well, that's smart. I'm glad they do. I didn't know.
Yes.
That's great.
So and going back to being in the community and seeing the kids, a lot of the kids approach you after school. You'll run into them.
Yes, absolutely. I see the kids, whether it's at the bank or, you know, after class.
You relayed a message to me from her.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. One of Jill's students was in the bank, and but you know, it's funny how, you know, and I'll see them out in the community, and you know, it's amazing how often you run into the different students and things, and or maybe after class, and they may have a question on, you know, on a savings account or on an account that they were looking to open, and and they may not always pose it necessarily in class. They may not be comfortable, and that's fine. I always make myself available after class. I give out my business card in a packet before we even start the semester, and I say, look, my card is in there. If you're not comfortable asking a question, give me a call. You can call me anytime. You can email me. I can call the
manager of the whole regional bank.
Absolutely.
He's going to answer my phone call.
Absolutely.
And I'm just a teenager.
That's right.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's pretty neat.
It's very, and you know what? And you know, and then they may not be comfortable asking the question in class, and so I certainly want to avail myself in case they do have a question or a concern, a comment. You know, that I'm there for them. So.
Well, you know, we were talking a little bit before we started about the level of credit card debt in this country. I think you said it was about up to 10 average, or was it higher?
I think it's even higher at this point. Average, they're saying, is between 15 to 20,000.
So that's a lot higher. So it's possible that many of these kids, maybe they haven't related it to themselves as much, but they may have overheard conversations where they ought to get the idea that this is serious stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's you know, and at this stage too, they need to know the pitfalls of credit. Credit cards are certainly a useful instrument. I have one. I utilize it.
I have one.
We can't have a good FICO score without three.
Absolutely, that's right. Yes, exactly. So I certainly think there's certainly benefit, but I also want to let them know also of the pitfalls involved with a credit card.
Very deep pitfalls.
And there are many. And we talk about psychologically the effect of utilizing a piece of plastic. It's a lot easier to make a big ticket purchase with a piece of plastic versus taking out your wallet or your purse and counting down those greenbacks.
Which is why we like them.
Absolutely. It has that psychological effect. It makes it very, very simple to make a purchase. But I also, and as we talked about earlier, my own School of Hard Knocks story, where after I got out of college, I had my own bout with credit card debt and how I relate to them my own experience. And I think they hear it from a first-hand perspective. And I think it's very, very important for them to hear that and to understand that it does happen. And, I consider myself, fairly well educated. I went to college and I thought I had a very good understanding, and I thought I was a pretty conservative person when it came to managing debt, but I got into trouble, and I had 3 credit cards that I maxed completely, and I had to go through one by one, pay them down, and I was able to get out of debt, but it took a long time, and as I tell the students, a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a lot of ramen soup in that time period, but it was
not a lot of fancy restaurants.
Not a lot of fancy restaurants whatsoever. It was a painful 3-4 years.
Your record collection probably suffered.
Absolutely, it did. A lot of things suffered. So, yep, absolutely. Social life certainly suffered a little bit, but it was, it was worth getting out of debt and having that experience. I certainly think I'm a better person for it.
And we want to teach them too that doesn't come without consequences. That okay. Like we said, it's so much easier to spend your money with a card rather than parting with the dollar bills. But it's okay to put something on a credit card now if you don't have the money, but by the time the bill rolls around, if you have the money and you're willing to write the check in full and send it off. But that if you don't and you do build that debt, that's going to hurt your credit score, and that credit score is going to follow you around for the rest of your life. You need a credit score to buy a house, to buy a car, what kind of loans are you going to get, and they look at your credit score. It's going
to affect your interest rates a lot.
Yes,
insurance
absolutely.
companies look at your credit rate.
Insurance companies, prospective employers.
Employers can. Yep. So and what I always say is, you can't replace experience. These kids are going to just have to live through and learn from whatever happens along the way. But perhaps when they get to college and they do get bombarded with those credit card applications in the mail, because they really kind of prey on the younger kids, they can say, oh, you know what? I remember Mr. Swain and Miss Tyler said, this isn't a good idea. Be very careful. And I always suggest try a debit card first. And some of the kids don't know the difference between a credit card and a debit card. I say try a debit card first, watch the money come out of the checking account, and then, work your way up to, and then just purchase something on the credit card when by the time the bill rolls around, you're ready to pay it off. So, boom.
How do the kids react?
A lot of times they're just,
it's an eye-opener, I think,
their chins drop a
them.
little bit, and they just really, because they're so me-centered, they're so focused on themselves that sometimes...
That's right.
And that's just being 17, 18 years
right.
old and having
we
not
were
really...
all there.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So it's just being of that age, but not seeing beyond. But a lot of them...
Right. And they may be more accustomed to, where mom and dad are going out and purchasing a lot of these things, so that when they're on their own, it's a big step. It's a big jump. When they leave the nest, it's certainly, I'm sure, going to be a big eye-opener for them when they have to start spending their own money to purchase different things.
Mom and dad can buy the big-ticket items because they've been working for,
That's right. Exactly.
15, 20 years, 25 years, so
Yes.
they can... I haven't. I don't have that nest built up, so they need to. But again, you can't replace experience, but we just tried the best that we can to prepare them for that.
Yeah, that kind of leads into, we do a specific program on budgeting, and we talk about coming up with a sound budget, a budget that makes sense. And we start them off with a salary, and we say, okay, this is what your salary is going to be after you've graduated. And then from that salary, we show them, okay, here's everything that's going to be taken out of your salary for taxes and everything else.
That's a hollow, sinking feeling.
It is, yes, because they're thinking, oh wow, I've got, boy, that's a big chunk of money to have on a month or on a bi-monthly or monthly basis.
Especially for someone who hasn't paid the car insurance in the house.
That's right, yes. And then we show them also and we have this on an Excel sheet. We go through and show them all the different expenses broken down of potential expenses. And I think for them, for every student that has gone through and has reviewed it, I think it's an eye-opener. They're pretty shocked by the number of expenses out there. And very, very few, we usually break the students up into groups, and very few groups are able to successfully keep their budget in the black. Many, in fact, I'd say...
This is only theoretical.
This is only theoretical, that's right. And
Money's
most of their
burning
budgets
a hole
are...
in their pocket.
Exactly. And most of their budgets, they're well into the red.
How can that be? I mean, they're sitting there looking at a list of things.
Yeah, they have the Excel spreadsheet that can create
Yeah.
So they're just
food,
plugging things
and they're
in.
plugging things in,
Yep.
not thinking.
That's right.
Because they don't know yet. And
They-
so by the time it hits, they're like, wow, we really have to back this train up.
Absolutely,
Right.
right. Yeah, because we'll hand out newspapers and we say, okay, find an apartment, or if somebody here is really, really interested, you could look at purchasing a house right out of either high school or college, but your salary is going to be a little bit lower. And so that's going to be a great challenge, certainly, to try it. But certainly, let's try and plug the numbers in. But they'll look at apartments, they'll look at and we calculate car loan payments, and we run different numbers that way. And we factor all these expenses in. And when you get to the bottom line, usually, again, they're in the red. And as I explained to them, if you're in the red, you got to get that money from somewhere. And that's where typically people then will throw it on credit cards to make up for that variance.
But the other option, of course, was...
Don't spend the money.
Right.
Lower the numbers.
Yep, exactly. Go back,
Hang on
right, and
to
tweak
it.
your expenses. Exactly.
Right.
Because you know what's coming in on the income side. That's pretty much a given. However, on the expense side, you do have some control there. And you can go back in and tweak those numbers, absolutely. So
you're painting a picture of a program that seems to be successful.
I think so. The kids do like it. I'm like, okay, Mr. Swain's coming in for. They're like, yes. And maybe they're saying that because they don't have to listen to me. But I think they like to ask the questions.
No, I don't think so.
No,
I think
they don't want to.
No, I don't think it's you.
They like to ask questions. They really, they'll just start, and some of them are so out there. The ones that the questions they develop, I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
In what way?
Really
in the way that. What made you ever think of that first, in a good way? And some are, where'd you get that? Where'd you come across that knowledge? Like,
Yes.
where did you stumble across that financial literacy, so to say? But they'll keep at you. They'll keep at us.
Yes.
They'll keep going and going and going until they're satisfied with the answer that you give them. But they will keep asking and asking. Like, you get the one, there's like a handful in third period that will just keep asking and asking, and I think it's great.
It is great.
It is.
Yeah, they're. I think they seem to be far more astute at this stage than I was when I was in high school. I look at myself when I was 17, 18 years old, and I really, I look at the kids today, and I think it's night and day. It seems, as far as their level of knowledge with a lot of the things that we talk about. And I'm sure that's a credit to their parents, and I'm sure that's a credit to a lot of different outside factors.
And yet they still have a hard time getting those numbers right. So
They do. And that's probably a good thing. I think it's an eye-opener for them.
Yes.
If they got it right, then they could
You'd say,
think,
well, maybe
I should be fine. I'm going to slide through, and so maybe that's a good thing too.
A little fear.
A little fear, healthy fear.
Yeah,
Yes,
healthy
is
fear.
healthy. Yep.
well, either it's a reaction against what they're seeing in the world, or they're learning something.
Yes.
I know I grew up worried about money, but I was only 6 years old because my parents worried about money, and they worried about it in front of the kids.
Yes.
Maybe not as much as they worried about it, but we heard,
Absolutely.
we knew what was going on a little bit.
Yes.
I think that. I think I was raised by a banker and a teacher. So my banker father always taught me he was very conservative, never put, he is very conservative. He still deals in strictly cash. I've never seen the man use a credit card before in my life. But he always said, don't get excited with the credit card and start spending things and putting things on there that you can't pay. And a lot of the kids, what we talk about is like the emergency credit card that kids go to college with. I had the emergency credit card, but it was instilled in me, this is if you're on the side of the road and you need to call AAA or something, emergency credit card. Try me if you use this for anything else.
Okay.
But not everybody.
He was going to get the bill.
Yeah, he was going to get the bill.
You couldn't cover that up.
No, I couldn't cover it up. So he said, try me and see what happens. But a lot of these kids will get an emergency credit card either through themselves, they'll apply, or their parents will. And that can be a slippery slope if they don't have the knowledge yet. A lot of kids will ask that, what if I get, that credit card in case I need it? That's good. That's fine.
Yes.
If you use it for that purpose, because that'll build you a credit rating for yourself. But
Absolutely.
that's a pitfall kids want to be careful of.
Let's talk a little more about the volunteer themselves, because I'm getting to the conclusion that what we really need, because the kids are getting this, the classes are there, it's mandated.
Yes.
Do we have enough volunteers?
No. Absolutely.
And that's really the problem.
Our 9th period economics class doesn't have a volunteer right now, and I really think they lose out
I agree.
on
I
something.
Agree. Yeah, I think they miss, they certainly miss, what a volunteer would bring to the table as far as just that real world scenario. And I think we do have a lot of real healthy discussion when I'm there or when a volunteer would be there. Just bringing in more of the real world. The discussion can certainly, in many cases, it's segued or it's led into other discussions on other topics that certainly maybe were not, not the original scope of what the topic was. It could certainly lead off into other areas. But I certainly think they miss out on that. But it's, I know they certainly need volunteers. At Scotia, there was the 9th period class, but you look at, now I get a report, I'm sure Jill gets a report at area-wide, and it has all the different schools where JA is involved, and there are certainly openings at other schools where junior achievement, where they also have the junior achievement classes as well. And I don't want to say it's widespread, but certainly you see gaps at all the schools.
So if you're a business person or you have some kind of financial expertise, and you can spare some time.
Absolutely.
And because my sister's in insurance and she goes into a 3rd grade classroom, it couldn't be any different from our scenario. So really it's what your interests are in, that if you want to volunteer, they'll find something that fits you. And if you like the little guys, you can go into the little guy class, and if you like the older ones.
4th, 5th, 6th graders? Or?
Yep.
Okay.
3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So they'll find something that you like. And it's not just finance. At that other level, it's other aspects they're dealing with. Like I know the mentor-mentee kind of programs.
So if you're an entrepreneur, for example.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, Scott Stevens, now his focus in his class is more of that of a small business owner and the challenges that he faces as a small business owner, and talking about that, that entrepreneurial experience that he brings. So his focus really is in that area, whereas my focus is more on finance and banking. But every volunteer certainly can bring their experiences to the table and certainly impart that information to the students. It's very, very, and so it doesn't have to necessarily be in that financial area. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a specific area. They're really looking for volunteers.
So anybody who has experience starting their business knows
Yes.
what it takes to get a new business
Absolutely.
off the ground.
Yes, absolutely.
Even GE, turning to the new energy. Because I always tell the kids there are going to be all these jobs. There are jobs that disappeared in the last, 2008 hit in our recession. Now there are jobs that are gone now that are never going to come back, but that there are jobs developing that haven't even been created yet. But they're there. They're going to be there in the future. And the green movement is one of them. So if somebody were to come in from GE from that development area of it, that would be a great exposure too. So the opportunities are available, and it's just a random connection could work. For any kid that that made me interested. I'm interested in the GE and the which way.
So you could be retired. You could be
absolutely.
Yes.
You're not retired by any means, but you take the time.
Yes, absolutely.
Retired. I'm retired. Financial world or
Absolutely.
anybody can really.
I think the fact that there's such a broad emphasis is pretty neat.
Yes.
And I certainly can relate to you being the outsider and coming in with something that's real.
Yes.
Yes.
You can talk about your parents
and my own
and that kind of thing and your experience, but then Ken comes in,
Yes.
and he's dealt with many people who have all kinds of debt problems, and they want to borrow money, and they can't borrow money, or their husband
right.
has racked up $30,000 of credit card debt, and the wife comes in to get a loan. I've heard that one from another person.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
Surprise.
yeah.
Surprise!
Yeah, absolutely, and the importance of starting off with a proper footing, and building that foundation for the future in proper fashion. Because ultimately, if you don't do that, it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost you significantly down the road. So it's so important to start off on the right foot.
Yeah.
And it's so easy, as I tell the students, it's real easy to lose that favorable credit rating. It's very difficult to maintain a favorable credit rating for 30, 40, 50 years. It's very, very difficult. There's a lot of pitfalls along the way, but it's very, very easy to lose that. And so it's certainly something that they have to work at, and they have to be very proactive about maintaining that proper footing and keep building upon that foundation for their future, and how important it is. When we talk about, both from a job standpoint, but also from their credit report is going to stay with them the rest of their life, and that can either work for them, or it can be the albatross around their neck, and they need to really, really work hard to make sure that they keep it.
And the other thing that
light.
I like to emphasize with them is that it's never too early to start saving for retirement. When I was in high school, my parents opened me a Roth IRA, and again, I can just be a talking head to them, but to bridge that, if they're intimidated or shy about going into the bank and inquiring, because maybe the bank will say, well, what does this kid want? Maybe they think that's what the bank is going to say.
Well, it seems impersonal if you look at the outside.
Yes.
It's a building. It's made to be.
That's right.
You want to make it look like everything inside is safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can't make it look like
Warm and
anybody
happy,
can
yeah.
walk in and
That's right.
just pick things up.
Yes.
So-
It's kind of like a contradiction.
Yes, it
You want to
is.
be Fort Knox and you want to be customer friendly.
That's right.
All at the same
Absolutely,
time.
yes.
But Ken's a friendly face, that, can you point me in the right direction?
Yes.
I want to, a lot of the kids don't have the savings account yet. They don't
right.
open the checking. They have the savings, but they open the checking before they leave for college. But so Ken's that real, like I said, I think they think I live in the school, They don't think I have something necessarily.
You are the teacher.
Yeah,
Yes.
real world to offer. So Ken definitely adds that element to the class.
Absolutely.
Right. And when there's a variety, I think that's natural for
Yeah.
people.
Yes.
They
We
got
always
that.
seek variety. I learned that you can't look at a star and just keep staring. It disappears. Did you ever see
Yeah.
that?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's because the mind just isn't made to pay attention to things that don't mean anything anymore.
Yeah. That's
right.
Not that you don't, but
I know.
they've seen you.
Believe me, I know. Eye contact, listen.
Right, keep going.
So,
So let's talk a little bit about the challenges. We're getting close to the end, but the challenges that anybody who's going to help people have to face. Let's say you want to reach these kids.
Yes.
They all have different backgrounds, noise in their heads.
Yes.
How do you break through that? What challenges do you face when you try to be a
I can
helper?
speak to one thing is first, it has to be a good relationship between the volunteer and the teacher.
Yes.
You definitely, we work well together, and my kids know that when Mr. Swain is there, you're alert, you're respectful, you're paying attention. So that's step one.
Yes.
Step two is just connecting.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Jill. It's so important to go into a class and have the support of the teacher as a volunteer. You know, we both team teach. I mean, there may be something I may use, and unfortunately bankers are notorious for using a lot of acronyms. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm with the government, and there's a lot of acronyms I'll throw out. Jill will interject. She'll say, okay, does everybody understand what that means?
You say
what a now account
and
means?
you're like FDIC. That's not like ABCD.
Exactly.
Simple things,
yes.
you know, CD to them is, you know, their
that's
CD.
a better example.
Yeah.
That's right, exactly. CD, what does that mean? Right,
Compact disc,
Jill
of
will.
course.
no.
Exactly. So that's very helpful to have, because I may throw something out there, and the kids might be looking at each other like, you know, what is that?
Why
you know,
you
and
put
Jill
a
will be like,
CD
you know what?
in
Let's take it back a little bit. So so that works out really, really well.
And I think let them, I mean, when it's appropriate, but let them see into your personal experiences. I think if you can bring a personal story into it, and Ken does, that they want to know about, as much as they want to talk about themselves, they want to know about you as well. So if you have a story to bring, that's when they're really interested.
That's right.
And they probably pick up on the interest you have for them as well.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Even when I teach U.S. history, when I get to the parts that I like the most, they pick up. I'm so excited. You know, I'm so excited for this unit, this part in American history, and because I'm so sometimes I'm still fascinated by things that they'll get into it because I'm into it. So if you bring energy and personal experience and you have a good relationship, then it will work well.
I like that. I'm understanding better what you're saying. You're so into it because it's your job.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm passionate about libraries, and somebody else is trying to start a new coffee empire. And of course they're interested in this. It's their life. They spend 80 hours a week in this place trying to make it grow.
Yes, absolutely.
Like I was doing Cold War in the post World War II era in American history, and it's difficult to make the Berlin Wall exciting to. And
yet I've had tears in my eyes about that.
When we did, I kept saying, I'm just so fascinated that this happened, that this is what happened. And I remember I tell them I was in 5th grade looking at the cover of Time magazine, and that the wall, it was over. And we watched this movie on it, and because I'm so in awe, they get into it, and they're like, how did it work? How did they do that? How did they keep them? And so it's the enthusiasm that you bring that they'll buy into it, you know?
That's so true. Absolutely.
They will.
Yeah, I'm very enthusiastic about financial literacy, and I think it's certainly something that community banks certainly are, it's a big part of our plan going forward, in ensuring that our young people are financially literate so that they can make the proper choices. And it's something that, I've been very, very passionate about. It's something that our bank is very passionate about. So this is, for me, it's a perfect fit because I can go in and we can talk about things, but we can do it in a fashion that's fun, that is not just reading out of a textbook, that is conveying true stories and in real life information, and not just theory and not just book work. We're actually getting up there and we're actually talking about things that certainly they're going to come across at some point.
So I guess if you were talking to somebody and they might be interested in being a volunteer, what would you say to them?
Contact Junior Achievement and just tell them if you have a story, if you're excited about something, your job, do it. Absolutely.
How would you convince me if I wasn't sure? I just heard about it.
Are you curious about seeing the inside of a classroom now as an adult? That would be one.
I mean, am I terrified? I'm not sure curious is the right word.
It's something to see. They're funny. That's why I teach. They keep me laughing, and they're funny, and I love them.
So I shouldn't be afraid of them.
No. Especially if you have a teacher that, that has good classroom management. They know. I have a pretty good sense of humor in the classroom. Maybe sometimes too much, I laugh, but they know when not to cross the line. And
I get that.
And if they cross the line when Mr. Swain's there, they better hope somebody's in the room the next time I get them, because I just won't stand for that. So if you have a teacher that sets that mutual back and forth respect in the classroom, there's no reason to be afraid. And they're unintentionally hilarious, and they're hilarious at the same time. They really are they're funny, and they're fun, and generally sweet kids. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've had just a wonderful experience. I mean, the 5 years that I've been at Scotia have just been tremendous. I've learned, here I'm 43, and I think every class I learned something from them. And because each of them brings their own unique experiences, even though they haven't had many experiences at the age of 17 or 18, they certainly have seen things, or they've experienced different things, and they bring a lot of that to the table in their questions and their comments. And I'll have to admit, my first few classes, I was terrified. I was very nervous. I'm not a teacher by trade.
We don't know what those small people are going to do.
I know.
You don't. And, I was nervous. But, I've had the pleasure of working with wonderful teachers, and it's been a great experience. And the kids are fantastic. The questions they ask are incredible. Again, I learned something every class. There isn't a class that I've done where I haven't picked up something from them. So it's been very rewarding for me, both personally and professionally, from that standpoint as a volunteer.
And don't give up the first time. It'll probably be awkward at first. Like you said, you're going to be nervous.
Yes.
I was nervous when I was an intern. When I was interning as a teacher and my mentor teacher left, I was like, oh my God, what do I do?
It's all me.
Yeah. And so that's going to be natural, but just give it. And, Ken's in such a groove with it now that
I'm really glad he did it. I can see that.
Yeah. So once you hit that, it works well.
Well, how can somebody, what would they do? Should they call a number? Should they go to a website? Call the school? What do you do?
The first website would be www.janeny.org. So it's Junior Achievement Northeastern New York. So janeny.org. They could email, our contact is Kathy Alessio, and it's CELISEO at the website janeny.org.
Okay, we'll put that on the screen a little longer. That was a long...
Contact, you could find me at Scotia, JTYLER at sgcsd.net.
Now some of these would work also for somebody in North or South Colonie or
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because they all have to take economics.
That's right. Absolutely.
And teachers are excited to have.
Definitely. Yeah, and if anyone that was interested in volunteering wanted to certainly inquire about what the involvement entails, I'd be happy also to, if they want to call me, they can certainly call me at First National Bank of Scotia, 370-7200, or they could reach me on my email at the bank. It's kwswain@firstscotia.com.
We will make sure they can see that.
Thank you.
Terrific.
This is great.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having us.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope especially that you do call your school or check the website and become a volunteer for JA. Have a great week.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.